Marta stood in the square with the string already looped around her waist, and everyone had gone quiet to watch the miller's daughter fail the measure again. The old matchmaker held both ends of the string, tugging, frowning, and the crowd leaned in the way crowds do when they smell a small cruelty coming. A young man near the well laughed once, sharp and short, and covered it with his hand. Marta felt her face go hot. She could hear the mill wheel turning somewhere behind her, slow and steady, the only sound in the world that wasn't judging her. Then she did something nobody expected. She reached out, took the string from the matchmaker's hands and tied it instead around the handle of a grain sack sitting nearby, the heaviest one, the one two men had grunted to carry that morning. She lifted it, not with a struggle, not with a wobble. She swung it up onto her shoulder the way her father did, straight and easy, and held it there while the whole square stared. "Measure this," she said. Her voice did not shake. "Tell me what a string says about this." Nobody laughed now. The matchmaker's mouth opened and shut, no words came. A boy near the front, the baker's son, started clapping before he caught himself, then stopped, unsure if it was allowed. An old woman near the chapel steps pressed a hand to her chest and smiled, though she quickly hid it. Marta set the sack down gently, dusted her hands on her apron and walked away from the square without waiting to see their faces change. Behind her, whispers started up like wind through wheat, some sharp, some soft, none of them the same as before. She did not look back. She had learned long ago that looking back only showed you who was still starring, and she was tired, so tired, of being looked at wrong. Joseph stood in his forge doorway with the hammer still hot in his hand, watching smoke curl up from the square where the crowd had just gone quiet, then loud, then quiet again. He had heard it all from here, the scrape of the string, the short laugh, and then the strange, heavy silence that followed. He set the hammer down without finishing the horseshoe. That silence meant something had happened worth walking toward. By the time he reached the square, Marta was already gone, but the grain sack still sat where she had dropped it, and the matchmaker was still staring at the spot like it might explain itself. Joseph said nothing. He picked up the sack himself, tested its weight in one hand, and felt his eyebrows lift. 2 grown men had carried this that morning. He had watched them do it, grunting, red-faced. He carried it back to the mill without a word to anyone, and set it just inside the door where Marta would find it. He did not knock. He did not wait to be thanked. He walked home the long way, past the well, thinking about a girl who could lift what men could not, and who walked away from a crowd instead of begging it to change its mind. That night he could not stop thinking of it. He watched from his forge for the rest of the week, not starring, never starring, just noticing, the way a smith notices the grain in wood before he chooses his tools. He saw her help old widow Kalna up the church steps, taking the woman's whole weight like it was nothing. He saw her laugh at the baker's boy's terrible joke, loud and real, while others only smiled to be polite. He saw her feed a stray dog from her bare hand in the rain, patient as stone, until the dog that snapped at everyone else finally ate. Joseph told no one what he was doing. He simply watched and counted and began to understand that the village had been measuring the wrong thing all along, and that he alone seemed to have noticed it. Marta was walking home along the river path, basket empty, shoulders low, when she heard boots behind her on the gravel. She turned, ready for another stare, another whisper. Instead, she found the blacksmith, soot still on his hands, standing there like he had something to say and had been building up the nerve for days. "Miller's daughter," Joseph said, "I have watched you help Widow Kalna up the steps 11 times this year. I have counted." Marta stopped walking. No one had ever counted anything about her except the inches of her waist. 11 times, she said slowly, not sure if she should laugh or step back. 11, he said again. "And I have watched you carry sacks that would bend a proud man's back. And I have watched you sit in the rain with a dog too fierce for anyone else, until it ate from your hand." Her face went warm. "Why tell me this, blacksmith?" "Because I think you believe no one sees you," he said. "I have seen you very clearly for a long while now. And what I see is a woman I would be glad to walk beside for the rest of my days, if she would have a man of iron and soot." Marta said nothing that evening. She had heard too few honest words in her life to trust a sudden sweet one, and she walked the rest of the way home turning his words over like a stone in her pocket. But Joseph did not flatter her again. He simply appeared again and again in small, quiet ways. He fixed the mill's broken axle and refused every coin offered. He walked Widow Kalna up the church steps himself one Sunday, saying nothing of it, until the widow, delighted, told the whole market herself. He never once said Marta should be smaller. He never spoke of her size as something to forgive or overlook. He spoke only of her strength, her laughter, her patience, as though they were rare metals he had been lucky enough to find. Slowly, carefully, the way a hand tests fire before trusting its warmth, Marta let herself believe he meant it. The chapel bells rang, and the whole village came, some for joy, some for the same old curiosity that once made them stare and look away. Marta stood behind the doors in a deep blue dress her mother had sewn, cut wide and proud instead of pinched to please an old foolish measure. Her hands shook, just a little. She thought of the string in the square, the laugh she had heard that day, and wondered if today would feel the same. The doors opened, she stepped out. Something strange happened then. The same young men who had once let their eyes slide past her as though she were a post holding up a fence now could not look away. She had not changed. Not 1 pound lost, not one edge softened. She simply stood there, solid as a hill in a valley, and at last the village looked at her properly. Old Widow Kalna wept in the front pew, telling her neighbor about the 11 times, then the 12th, then more she'd lost count of. A hush fell over the chapel, the good kind, the kind that comes when a room finally understands something it had gotten wrong for years. Joseph waited at the altar, soot scrubbed as clean from his hands as it would ever come. When Marta reached him, he took her big, strong, grain-calloused hands in his own burned ones and held them like the finest things he had ever shaped in the forge. "I told you," he said, quiet just for her, "that I had been watching a long while." "You did," Marta whispered, tears in her eyes now too. "A blacksmith does not waste his watching on ordinary iron," he said. "He watches for the metal worth shaping into something lasting. I found that in you the first year I came here, and I have not once been wrong since." The village still tells this story, not as a tale of a girl who was fixed or made smaller to be loved, for she never was. They tell it as a tale of a village that measured wrong for years, and one patient blacksmith who measured right from the very start. In the end, it was never Marta who needed to change. It was everyone else's eyes.